Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. This time we're going all in on Daredevil, Born Again on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
You know the deal.
Yeah.
You're here because you're like, is this going to be a continuation of the Netflix show?
Right.
Or is this a reboot?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's been a little confusing, right?
It has.
Some people are saying it's one thing, some people are saying it's another thing.
Yeah.
We're going to get to the bottom of it today.
They are.
And we've got some really good articles from the Direct to help us out.
Yeah. These are really interesting.
So yeah, let's see what we can find out.
So, one of the things that I think is really fascinating is how Daredevil went from Netflix to Disney Plus.
Yeah.
And it's been a bit of a bumpy ride, honestly.
Yeah.
Remember there was all this talk initially about an 18-episode reimagining, which sounded like a total fresh start.
I was so skeptical.
Yeah.
I was like, come on, you can't just pretend the Netflix show never happened.
Exactly, and a lot of people felt that way. And then things got even more confusing when they brought on a new creative team, shifted to this serialized format, and even recast Vanessa Fisk.
Right.
I mean, at that point, all signs were pointing towards a reboot.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then, the Direct actually points out something really crucial here.
Yeah.
They brought back Alit Zur to play Vanessa Fisk.
That's right.
So what is that all about?
I mean, it seems like a pretty strong signal to me that they're leaning into the legacy of the Netflix series.
Yeah.
They're not wiping the slate clean, and the evidence doesn't stop there.
Oh, really?
You've also got Deborah Ann Wool returning as Karen Page.
Okay.
Eldon Henson as Foggy Nelson.
Right.
Even Wilson Bethel is coming back as Benjamin Poindexter, a.k.a. Bullseye.
Yeah, you're right. It's like the whole gang is getting back together.
It is. It's a pretty familiar lineup.
Yeah, and on top of all of that, John Bernthal's reprising his role as the Punisher.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. That's going to mean so.
It absolutely does. And, it gets even more interesting when you consider that Dario Scartapan, a writer from The Punisher, is actually heading up Daredevil, Born Again.
Okay.
Like, that's not just a coincidence.
Right.
That's a deliberate choice to build on what came before.
So, I mean, it's looking more and more like a sequel here, not a reboot.
Yeah, the evidence is pretty strong.
Yeah, but then the Direct also drops this other really intriguing detail.
Okay.
They say that the new show picks up years after the events of Daredevil Season 3.
Oh, wow.
Which is where we last saw Matt Murdock, fake his own death after that brutal showdown with Fisk.
Yeah.
So what do you think happened in those missing years?
I think that time jump is such a smart move by the writer. It's like a blank canvas, filled with possibilities for character development and untold stories.
Totally.
The Direct speculates that we might see the fallout from Matt's death. How his friends coped, how Fisk rebuilt his empire. And I know you being, somebody who really loves long-form storytelling, I think you can really appreciate the potential this has.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And speaking of Fisk, the Direct also hints that he's aiming to become the mayor of New York City.
Interesting.
So it's not just about, controlling the criminal underworld anymore.
Yay.
It's about, holding legitimate power.
Exactly. And Matt Murdock, on the other hand, seemingly has stepped back from his vigilante life and is now practicing law.
Really?
So imagine Daredevil and Kingpin's battle, but on a political stage?
Whoa.
Why?
That's crazy.
What kind of legal battles and moral dilemmas are they going to face?
That's awesome. Yeah, it's like such a cool twist on their, classic conflict, taking it from the shadows into the public eye.
Right.
I'm already picturing tense courtroom scenes.
Yeah.
And Fisk using his political influence to manipulate the legal system.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just them. The Direct mentions the return of the Daredevil impersonator Dex.
Oh, yeah.
Plus the introduction of 2 new villains, White Tiger and Muse.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And what's interesting is that we know very little about these new villains.
Right. They're like total wild cards.
They are.
Yeah. And I know you love a good complex narrative, so I bet you're already thinking about all the potential alliances and betrayals that could be happening here.
Oh, yeah.
So what kind of threats do you think these new characters are going to pose?
Well, it's hard to say for sure, but But what's really interesting is that both White Tiger and Muse have ties to the art world in the comics.
Oh, okay.
Given Fisk's own interest in art, The Direct theorizes that they could be playing into his schemes somehow.
All right.
Maybe he's using them to launder money or influence public opinion or something.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Adds another layer of intrigue to that whole Fisk for mayor thing.
Exact.
But we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves.
Sure.
Let's zoom out for a sec.
Okay.
Now that Daredevil's officially part of the MCU, like, how do you think that impacts his world?
Well, I mean, it's a game changer, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, remember those little appearances he had in Spider-Man No Way Home and She-Hulk?
Yeah.
Like, those were just a taste.
Yeah.
Now with Born Again, we're getting a full-fledged exploration of Daredevil's corner of the MCU.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that means, like, potential for crossovers, cameos.
Yeah.
The whole 9 yards.
Absolutely.
And I know how much you love the wider MCU. So
I do?
I bet you're just, like, buzzing with possibilities right now.
Oh, absolutely. The Direct even suggests that we might see characters like Spider-Man or Kate Bishop popping up.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
But even beyond, like, specific cameos, it's like, how does Daredevil's street-level world fit into this universe of gods and aliens?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, in the Netflix series, he was dealing with gangsters and ninjas.
Sure.
Now he's in the same world as, like, the Avengers. Like, does he suddenly have to worry about Thanos-level threats?
Well, not necessarily. You know what's really fascinating is that the Direct highlights Daredevil's role as kind of the human element in the MCU.
Oh, okay.
You know, he's not a super soldier or a sorcerer.
Right.
He's a guy with heightened senses
Yeah.
and incredible fighting skills.
Yeah.
Taking on crime in like the gritty alleys of New York.
Yeah, it's that, like, groundedness that makes him so relatable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even in a universe with cosmic beings, like his struggles feel real.
Right.
His victories harder.
Yeah, that's where the thematic depth comes in.
Exactly. The Direct argues that Daredevil's story in Born Again might actually be about how ordinary heroism holds up in the face of extraordinary events.
Oh, wow.
You know, think about it, the multiverse.
Right.
These are things that could shake anyone's faith.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And speaking of the blip,
Yeah.
the Direct brings up something that I hadn't even considered.
Okay.
Like, did Matt Murdock even get snapped away?
Oh.
If so, how did that impact him?
Yeah.
And if not, how did he cope with half of Hell's Kitchen, like, vanishing and then reappearing 5 years later?
Those are questions I bet you're dying to see answered.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. I bet you've already got theories brewing.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But you bring up a good point. Like, we've been talking about all these big MCU-level changes.
Right.
But it's the personal stuff that really hits home.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what about Matt and Karen?
Yeah.
The Direct confirms that Karen Page is back.
Oh, okay.
But they're pretty tight-lipped about their relationship.
That's on purpose, you know?
But
they know the fans are invested in that dynamic.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Years have passed. They've both been through so much trauma.
Mm-hmm.
The Direct speculates that their reunion's going to be like a pivotal moment.
Yeah.
You know, potentially reigniting their connection or pushing them further apart.
Oh, wow.
It could go either way.
Yeah. It's a big question. Yeah, like we've seen in other MCU projects, how the multiverse has really shaken things up.
Right.
So, like, does Daredevil get caught in the crossfire?
Well, I mean, it's definitely a possibility.
Yeah.
And, you know, you being the comic book expert that you are, you probably already know about all those crazy multiversal variants of Daredevil out there.
Yeah, there's a lot.
There are, and the Direct even suggests that we might see some of those variants pop up in Born Again.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Imagine, like, a Daredevil who's a sorcerer supreme, or a version of him who, like, joined Hydra.
Right.
That would be insane.
It would be wild.
But even if it's not as drastic as that, like having alternate Daredevils running around,
Sure.
the multiverse still adds, like, this whole other layer of complexity
Oh, absolutely.
to the story.
Yeah, imagine this Fisk seeking ultimate power.
Right.
Finds a way to tap into the multiverse.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even make deals with beings from other realities.
Okay.
The Direct hints that this could be how he really solidifies his control over New York.
Right.
He's no longer just a kingpin.
Yeah.
He's like a multiversal power player.
That's kind of scary.
It is a little bit, yeah.
But, okay, let's shift gears for a sec.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about, like, the plot.
Right.
But what about the deeper themes? Like, what do you think Born Again is really about?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
The Direct suggests that Born Again is about more than just, you know, punching bad guys.
Oh.
It's about faith resilience.
Right.
And finding hope in a world that's been totally turned upside down.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, Matt Murdock's faith has always been, like, such a core part of his character.
Mm-hmm.
But how does that faith hold up after the blip?
Right.
after seeing half the world disappear and reappear.
Yeah.
And then how does he reconcile his beliefs with the existence of the multiverse?
Exactly.
Which is a concept that challenges everything he thought he knew.
Right. It really throws a wrench in things.
It does, yeah. And these are questions that it seems like the direct thinks that the show is going to tackle head on.
Yeah, I think so.
It's not just about Daredevil fighting crime. It's about him fighting for his soul, trying to make sense of a world that's become so chaotic and unpredictable.
I mean, and that makes me think about how Daredevil's story might resonate with viewers on like a personal level.
Yeah.
We've all been through a lot these past few years with the pandemic, political turmoil, and everything else going on.
Right.
Maybe seeing Daredevil grapple with these big existential questions can help us process our own struggles and find our own sense of hope.
Totally. I think you're spot on there. I think, like, at its core, Daredevil, Born Again, is a story about rebirth. About finding the strength to pick yourself up and keep fighting, even when it feels like the world is falling apart.
Yeah, and that's a message I think that we can all get behind.
Absolutely. So to wrap things up, it sounds like Daredevil, Born Again, is shaping up to be like this really complex, multi-layered story.
It is.
That's both a continuation of what we loved about the Netflix series, but also like a bold step forward into the wider MCU.
Exactly. We've got familiar faces, a captivating storyline, thought-provoking themes, all wrapped up in the excitement of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
And the direct seems to think that this has the potential to be something truly special.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for diving deep with me. I cannot wait to see how this all unfolds when the show premieres on March 4th.
It's going to be an exciting ride.
It is, for sure. And make sure you come back and share your thoughts once you've seen it.
Definitely.